Welcome into Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. We do want to turn our attention to another story that's been getting quite a lot of attention online. Of course, I want to put up this tweet for you that we have from Variety laying out what's happening here. Justin Baldoni, the actor, is now suing Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds for $400 million. He's alleging that they sought to, quote unquote, destroy him. This all pertains back to that It Ends With Us movie. He was the actor and director. Justin has now sued his co-star Blake Lively and her husband, Deadpool actor Ryan Reynolds, for defamation and extortion on Thursday. This was the latest move, though, in a very bitter legal battle surrounding the dark romantic comedy. Do want to put up some video for you as well here. But the suit there that was filed in federal court in New York by Baldoni and production company Wayfarer Studios is now seeking at least $400 million for damages. That includes loss of future income. It alleges that Lively and Reynolds hijacked the production and marketing of It Ends With Us and then manipulated the media to smear Baldoni and others on the production with false allegations of sexual and other harassment. We do know, though, that this lawsuit comes just about 2 weeks after both Lively and Baldoni and several others tied to the film alleged that they were retaliated against for her coming forward about her treatment on set. So Lively, of course, sued Baldoni 2 weeks ago, and now he is coming out in a lawsuit to respond to that. I do want to bring into the conversation now Tre Lovell to just dive into this story. Tre, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. This has been a story that has taken so many twists and turns over the last few weeks. What are your initial thoughts with Justin Baldoni now bringing this new lawsuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds?
Well, I think what happened was initially when Blake Lively came out and she filed that complaint with the Civil Rights Division, California, it was just her version. And so people were pretty quick to jump on the bandwagon. There were pretty bad allegations. His agent dropped him the day after. And it was a very just one-sided narrative. Now we're seeing the other side of the coin. And he has a completely different narrative, an explanation in terms of what really happened. And it's going to be about the evidence. So, I knew it would come around. I knew, that we were sitting with her version for a while, but they were going to come out. And if the attorney lives up to his promises on showing the evidence, on showing all these text messages and having a website to be very transparent for the public, it's going to be very interesting.
And I do want to read out a statement that we have as well. This is reported there from the Associated Press. It says that this is a case about two of the most powerful stars in the world deploying their enormous power to steal an entire film out of the hands of its director and its production studio. This is what is inside of that lawsuit that Baldoni did file. It says, then when Lively and Reynolds' efforts failed to win them the acclaim that they believe they so richly deserved, they turned their fury on their chosen scapegoat. I mean, Tre, when I'm listening to that, that's pretty powerful words to put into a written document that's going to be there in the court systems. Do you think that this was necessary for Baldoni to put this sort of language into that document for it to be listened or maybe taken seriously?
Absolutely. She struck first blood, right? She came out with first there was the New York Times article, and then there was the Civil Rights Division complaint. And with her side. So she came out first. So at that point, he's getting dropped by his agent. He's losing other opportunities. He's getting a negative feeling in the public. He had to do something strong. And he had to get his story out there. And so I knew it would come. And they needed to have a big wave, a big blast coming from his side. So it started first with the lawsuit against the New York Times for having conspired with Blake Lively and her team to come up with this negative narrative, and now it's the direct lawsuit against Ryan Reynolds and her. So yes, he absolutely needed to do it to restore his credibility, to get his name back, and to be able to work.
And I think it is interesting because so much of this lawsuit ultimately is going to play out in the court of public opinion. But I do want to put this up as well, just so we can get both sides here. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. We do know that Blake Lively's legal team has responded to this lawsuit as well, saying that it's yet another chapter in the abuser playbook. It says, quote, "This is what experts call DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim offender." Did want to ask you now as well what you thought of that statement, calling it DARVO. Is that a term that's normally used? Why did she decide to use that language in her response?
I've never heard that term before, so and I don't, it's certainly not a legal term. But she's sitting back because he's made some really bold allegations against her, and switching the narrative. And the public opinion is swaying a little bit. It's not just completely one-sided in her favor anymore because some people are getting a different view. But she had to come back and respond. But I think one thing is to take notice, and your audience needs to understand. Blake Lively is the power player, and when she is cast in a movie like this, she is the reason that Sony Pictures is doing the deal. She is the reason the movie's getting greenlit. So she wields a lot of power, even though she's just an actress and she's not a producer, a director, a rights owner. It really rests with her whether or not the movie gets finished and whether or not she gets the marketing out there. Now, I'm not saying that obviously, that she's bad and that means that she didn't, that she's the culprit. We still don't know that yet. But there's a power dynamic here, and she has the power on the set. And being with Ryan Reynolds, that doubles it. And so that dynamic needs to be kind of understood as we look at these text messages, as we look at the evidence, and to really understand what happened.
And I have another question here because I mean, both of these lawsuits are their particular sides. It feels like it's a lot of he said, she said. How will either of their legal teams move forward and when they're trying to get, and what proof will they use? Do they need to use witnesses? Will they bring up more text messages? We do know that text messages were in that initial New York Times article that came out where Blake Lively first accused Justin Baldoni of sexual harassment.
It started out as a he said, she said, but now it's turned into a very evidence-rich case. There is a lot of evidence, a lot of text messages, emails. There's going to be a lot of witnesses who can really corroborate either side's narrative. And so this case started out, his word against her word. It's going to rest with the evidence, and there's a lot to it. And so, we're not going to be left with just a credibility issue. What her side of the story and his side of the story. Now we're going to look at what backs that up. And there seems to be a lot of evidence, and that's going to be the text messages, the emails. That's going to be witness testimony in terms of what each side was thinking, the motivations, and that's really where the decision making and the final result's gonna end.
And I want to ask you just about the temperature that's there in Hollywood. Things have changed significantly from quote unquote the old days, of course, starting with the Me Too movement just about 8 to 10 years ago. We really started to see change within Hollywood as it pertains to how people react in work situations and how they treat one another. Do you think that this will also play a major role in this lawsuit and who ends up with the court of public opinion and who people feel is saying the right thing, and also who ultimately ends up winning as well in the courtroom?
Yeah, ultimately, this lawsuit is not going to help either one of them in terms of their brand. Celebrities and actors, as they're trying to pursue their livelihood and career, being in litigation doesn't help. Because as time goes on, facts trickle out that some may be for them, some may be against them. But as they're trying to pursue their career, they're trying to get their acting jobs, they're trying to make these films. As evidence trickles out that's negative, it's only going to hurt the brand. So I think ultimately, we'll see, whose narrative is correct. I think Lively has the most to lose. If it comes out that he's right and she tried to hijack the film and she came out and tried to get the smear campaign to get him back and things like that, if that's accepted, I think it's going to really hurt her name and her career. And for him, if her side is accepted, he's going to have a difficult time as well. The last thing I'll say is this. I don't like it when I see the agency, William Morris, dump him. These agents, these networks, and these production companies are too quick to drop talent based on allegation. We're talking about somebody's livelihood. I just wish they would reserve their judgment, reserve their actions until the evidence comes out on both sides, make a good determination. But I just hate when they jump too quick because they're playing with people's lives.
And Trey, I will let you go after this, but I have to ask you, Ryan Reynolds is also a part of this lawsuit. It seems though he's sort of being treated as on the fringes and not the face of the lawsuit, obviously, because the true contradiction is really between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. How do you think this is going to affect his career? His star has been on the rise over the last 15 years. He's now, of course, in some of the biggest movies that we see come out in theaters, including Deadpool, which broke records last year when it came out. What do we think happens to his career as it pertains to these lawsuits?
His career isn't as much in jeopardy because he's on the fringes, like you said, on the outside, and people will often think he's just standing by his wife, and they would expect him to do that. The real battle is with Blake Lively, and so I don't think his brand can be hurt too much, because he's just being a loyal husband. But I at the same time, his brand is not going to be helped because when you air your dirty laundry, the smell stays with you, and that's what's happening here. At the end of this, first of all, I don't think it's going to go to trial. This thing's going to resolve eventually once each side gets their narrative out. But at the end, both sides are going to regret this never happened. I'm going to wish this never happened. I'm going to regret this.
Any chance that we see the actual outcome of that lawsuit, or do you think they'll settle quietly and keep everything under wraps?
They will settle quietly. We're going to hear, these big waves of the evidence and the complaints and litigation coming out and all the stories like we're doing now. And then when it gets quiet and people's attention shifts, all of a sudden it'll be gone. And it'll be settled under confidentiality, under non-disparagement, which means you can't disclose the terms. You can't talk bad about the other. It goes away.
Certainly something that we're going to continue to keep our eyes on here on Live Now. From Fox, Tre Lovell, attorney, here to help us break down the very latest in this case that's capturing so many people on social media. Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, three of the biggest actors of our day today, now fighting in court, and now this new $400 million lawsuit. Certainly something we'll keep up with. Thanks so much for being with us, Trey.
Well, thanks for having me.